The grand ballroom of Buckingham Palace sparkled under crystal chandeliers as Prince Charles stood near the tall windows, watching the evening light fade over London. At 32, he carried the weight of royal expectations on his shoulders like an invisible crown. Every decision he made was scrutinized by the press, the public, and most importantly, his family. Camilla Parker Bowles entered the room wearing an elegant navy dress that complemented her confident demeanor. She had been part of Charles's life for years, their relationship weathering storms of public disapproval and family pressure. Tonight, she hoped, would be different. Tonight, she believed Charles would finally choose love over duty. "Charles," she said softly, approaching him with careful steps. Her voice carried a mixture of hope and uncertainty that made his heart ache. "We need to talk about our future." Charles turned to face her, his blue eyes reflecting the turmoil within. Camilla had always understood him in ways others couldn't. She knew his struggles with royal protocol, his desire for authenticity in a world of carefully scripted appearances. Yet standing before her now, he felt the crushing weight of centuries of royal tradition. "Camilla, you know how I feel about you," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "but the situation has become impossible. The Queen has made her position clear and Parliament would never approve our union." Camilla's face remained composed, though her hands trembled slightly. She had prepared for this moment, knowing it might come, yet hoping it never would. "What about what we want, Charles? What about love?" The prince walked to his desk where a formal letter lay waiting. The palace had been buzzing with rumors about a potential engagement announcement, but not the one Camilla had hoped for. Charles picked up the letter, his fingers tracing the royal seal. "There's someone else," he said, the words cutting through the air like a blade. "Someone the family believes would be more suitable for the future King of England." Camilla's breath caught in her throat. She had heard whispers in royal circles about a young woman who had caught the Queen's attention, Lady Catherine Middleton, a commoner with grace and poise that had impressed even the most traditional members of the royal household. "Catherine?" Camilla asked, though she already knew the answer. Charles nodded slowly. "The Queen believes she represents a new direction for the monarchy. Someone who can bridge the gap between tradition and modernity. Someone who can win the hearts of the British people." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. Camilla had always known this day might come, but experiencing it felt like a physical blow. She thought of all the private moments they had shared, the conversations about their dreams for the future, the quiet understanding that had grown between them over the years. "I see," she said finally, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "And you agree with their assessment?" Charles struggled to find the right words. He genuinely cared for Camilla, but the pressure from his family had become unbearable. The Queen had made it clear that his choice of wife would impact not just his personal happiness but the future of the monarchy itself. "It's not about agreement," he replied. "It's about duty. It's about what's best for England." Camilla nodded slowly, understanding the impossible position Charles found himself in. She had always known that loving a future king meant competing with an entire nation for his attention and loyalty. "When will you announce it?" she asked, her practical nature taking over even in this moment of heartbreak. "Next week," Charles answered. "Catherine has already been briefed by the palace staff. The engagement will be formal and public." As Camilla prepared to leave, she turned back one last time. "I hope she makes you happy, Charles. I hope she understands what she's taking on." Charles watched her go, feeling as though he was letting go of more than just a relationship. He was choosing a path that would define not only his future, but the future of the British monarchy. The decision felt both right and wrong, necessary yet devastating. Outside the palace, London continued its evening rhythm, unaware that inside those ancient walls, a choice had been made that would reshape the royal family forever. Charles stood alone in the ballroom, the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak he would wear for the rest of his life. Catherine Middleton sat in her modest apartment in Chelsea, staring at the phone that had just delivered news that would change her life forever. The call from Clarence House had been brief but earth-shattering. Prince Charles wished to meet with her regarding a matter of utmost importance to the crown. At 29, Catherine had built a quiet life for herself, working in her family's party planning business. She had always admired the royal family from afar, like most British citizens, but never imagined she would become personally involved in their world. Her university education and natural elegance had caught the attention of certain royal circles. though she hadn't understood the significance at the time. The black car that arrived to collect her was understated but unmistakably official. As London's streets rolled past the tinted windows, Catherine tried to calm her racing heart. She had heard rumors about Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, whispers that their relationship was causing concern within the palace walls. Arriving at Clarence's house, Catherine was struck by the building's imposing grandeur. Every detail spoke of centuries of history and tradition. A private secretary greeted her with professional courtesy and led her through corridors lined with portraits of previous monarchs. Prince Charles received her in his private study, a room filled with books and personal mementos that made him seem more human than the distant figure she had seen in newspapers. He stood as she entered, his manner formal yet kind. "Miss Middleton," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." Catherine settled into the offered seat, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "Your Royal Highness, it's an honor to be here." Charles studied her carefully. The palace advisors had been right about her presence. Catherine possessed a natural dignity that couldn't be taught or manufactured. Her responses were thoughtful, her demeanor respectful without being subservient. "I'm sure you're wondering why you've been asked here," Charles began, his tone measured and careful. "The situation I'm about to discuss with you is both delicate and unprecedented." Catherine nodded, encouraging him to continue. "The Queen and I have been discussing the future of the monarchy," Charles explained. "Recent events have made it clear that my personal choices must align with the Crown's best interests. The woman I marry will someday be Queen of England." The implications of his words began to dawn on Catherine. She had expected perhaps a request to help with a charitable function or some minor royal duty. This conversation was heading in a direction she hadn't imagined. "The palace has been observing you for some time," Charles continued. "Your background, your character, your ability to handle public attention. Everything suggests you would be an ideal candidate for this role." Catherine's mouth went dry. "Your Royal Highness, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking." Charles leaned forward slightly. "I'm asking if you would consider becoming my wife. Not for love initially, but for duty, for England." The silence that followed seemed to echo through the centuries-old room. Catherine felt as though the world had tilted on its axis. Marriage to the future King of England was something that happened in fairy tales, not to ordinary young women from Berkshire. "This is overwhelming," she admitted honestly. "I never imagined such a possibility." "I understand this is sudden," Charles said gently, "but circumstances have forced my hand. The relationship I had hoped to pursue has proven incompatible with royal expectations." Catherine thought of her simple life, her family, her dreams for the future. All of that would disappear if she accepted this proposal. Yet she also understood the magnitude of what was being offered. To serve her country as queen, to be part of history itself. What would this mean exactly? She asked, her practical nature asserting itself. "Complete transformation of your life," Charles answered honestly. "Training in royal protocol, constant public scrutiny, giving up your privacy forever. But also the opportunity to serve the British people in a way few ever can." Catherine stood and walked to the window, looking out at the London streets where ordinary people went about their daily lives, unaware that inside this room, a conversation was taking place that would affect them all. "May I have time to consider this?" she asked. "Of course," Charles replied, "but I must ask for your answer within a week. The palace needs to move forward with official announcements." As Catherine prepared to leave, Charles called her name softly. "Catherine, I want you to know that while this arrangement may not begin with romantic love, I have every intention of building a partnership based on mutual respect and shared duty. You would not be entering this alone." Catherine met his eyes and saw genuine sincerity there. This man was offering her a life beyond her wildest dreams, even if it came with responsibilities beyond her current comprehension. The drive home passed in a blur of thoughts and emotions. Catherine's quiet world had been turned upside down by a single conversation, and she now faced the most important decision of her life. The Middleton family home in Bucklebury buzzed with tension as Catherine sat across from her parents in their comfortable living room. The familiar surroundings that had always brought her comfort now seemed surreal, given the conversation she was about to have. "Mom, Dad," Catherine began, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions within her. "I need to tell you about something extraordinary that happened today." Michael and Carol Middleton exchanged glances. They had noticed their daughter's unusual demeanor since she returned from London, but nothing could have prepared them for what came next. "Prince Charles has asked me to marry him," Catherine said simply, watching her parents' faces transform from confusion to shock to disbelief. Carol Middleton's teacup rattled against its saucer as she set it down with trembling hands. "Catherine, darling, that's impossible. He's involved with Camilla Parker Bowles." "Not anymore," Catherine explained. "The palace has decided that relationship isn't suitable for the future king. They've been watching me, apparently, and believe I would be an appropriate choice for a royal marriage." Michael Middleton leaned back in his chair, his business mind immediately grasping the implications. "This isn't about love, is it?" "This is about duty and public image," Catherine nodded. "Charles was very honest about that. He said it would be a partnership built on mutual respect and shared service to the country." The weight of the situation settled over the family, like a heavy blanket. They had always been proud of Catherine's grace and intelligence, but this possibility had never entered their minds. "What do you want to do?" Carol asked, her maternal instincts overriding her shock. "I don't know," Catherine admitted. "Part of me thinks it's mad to even consider it. But another part wonders if this is what I'm meant to do. Think about the good I could accomplish as queen." Over the following days, Catherine retreated to her childhood bedroom to think. She made lists of pros and cons, called trusted friends for advice, and spent long hours walking the countryside paths she had loved since childhood. Each step brought new clarity about the magnitude of the decision before her. Her sister Pippa visited on the third day, finding Catherine staring out at the garden where they had played as children. "You're really considering this, aren't you?" Pippa said, settling beside her sister. "I keep thinking about what it would mean," Catherine replied. "Not just for me, but for our family, for the country. If I can help modernize the monarchy and bring it closer to ordinary people, maybe that's worth sacrificing my privacy." "And Charles, can you imagine being married to someone you don't love?" Catherine was quiet for a long moment. "He seems like a good man. Complicated, certainly, but genuinely committed to his duty. Maybe love can grow from respect and shared purpose." The call came on Thursday evening. Charles himself was on the line, his voice gentle but urgent. "Catherine, I know this is rushing you, but events are moving quickly. The press is beginning to speculate about my future plans. Have you reached a decision?" Catherine closed her eyes, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. In her mind, she saw herself as a little girl, curtsying to the television when the Queen appeared. She remembered her grandmother's stories about royal visits to their town, the pride in her voice when she spoke of serving the crown. "Yes," she said quietly. "Yes, I'll do it." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several heartbeats. "Are you certain?" Charles asked. "Once we announce this, there will be no going back." "I understand," Catherine replied, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. "I want to serve my country. I want to help you lead the monarchy into the future." "Then we should meet tomorrow to discuss the arrangements," Charles said. "Welcome to the family, Catherine." After hanging up, Catherine sat in the gathering darkness of her childhood room. She had just agreed to give up everything familiar and safe for a life of unimaginable responsibility and scrutiny. Yet beneath the fear she felt something else. Purpose. The next morning, she woke to find photographers already gathering outside the family home. News of her frequent visits to London had leaked and speculation was running wild. Catherine looked out her bedroom window at the crowd of reporters and cameras, getting her first real taste of what her new life would involve. Her mother knocked softly on the door. "Catherine, there's a call for you." "It's the Queen's private secretary." As Catherine walked downstairs to take the call, she felt herself crossing an invisible threshold. The ordinary young woman who had climbed these stairs the night before was gone forever. In her place was someone who would soon be preparing to become the future Queen of England. The conversation with the palace was brief, but comprehensive. There would be a formal announcement in 2 days, followed immediately by intensive training in royal protocol. Catherine's life as she had known it was over, but her life as a public servant to the British people was about to begin. The morning of the official announcement dawned gray and drizzly, matching the somber mood that had settled over certain quarters of London. Camilla Parker Bowles sat in her drawing room, newspapers spread across the coffee table like evidence of a crime. Every headline screamed the same shocking news: Prince Charles was engaged to Catherine Middleton. The photographs showed Catherine looking radiant and composed as she stood beside Charles in the palace gardens. Her engagement ring, a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds, caught the light as she waved to the gathered crowd. To the public, she appeared to be the perfect choice for their future queen. Camilla's housekeeper knocked softly before entering with a fresh pot of tea. "Mrs. Parker Bowles, there are more reporters gathering outside. Shall I close the curtains?" "No," Camilla replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Let them see that I'm perfectly fine," but she wasn't fine. Reading the details of Charles's engagement felt like reliving their final conversation over and over again. The newspapers described Catherine's background, her education, her family's successful business. Everything about her seemed designed to contrast favorably with Camilla's more complicated history. At Clarence House, Charles was enduring his own form of torment. The engagement photo shoot had gone well, and Catherine had handled the media attention with remarkable grace. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he was living someone else's life. "Your Royal Highness," his private secretary interrupted his thoughts. "The schedule for Miss Middleton's royal training has been finalized. She'll begin tomorrow morning with protocol lessons." Charles nodded absently. Catherine had thrown herself into preparation with admirable determination. She studied constitutional law in the evenings, practiced her curtsies with the Queen's lady-in-waiting, and memorized the names and faces of hundreds of dignitaries she would need to recognize. Meanwhile, the British public was divided in their reaction to the engagement. Many celebrated the choice of a commoner, who they felt would bring fresh perspective to the monarchy. Others questioned whether Catherine had the experience necessary to handle such enormous responsibility. Catherine herself was discovering that her new life began immediately, not after the wedding. Every morning brought lessons in royal protocol, constitutional history, and public speaking. She learned which fork to use at state dinners, how to address foreign diplomats, and the proper way to enter a room when cameras were watching. "Remember," instructed Lady Pemberton, her etiquette teacher, "you're not just representing yourself anymore. Every gesture, every expression, every word will be analyzed by millions of people." The weight of this responsibility sometimes felt crushing. Catherine would lie awake at night, wondering if she had made the right choice. She missed her old life's simplicity, the freedom to make mistakes without them becoming national news. Charles seemed to sense her struggles during their brief, formal meetings. Their relationship was slowly evolving from strangers thrown together by circumstance to partners learning to navigate an impossible situation together. "How are you managing?" he asked one afternoon as they reviewed plans for their upcoming wedding. "It's overwhelming," Catherine admitted honestly, "but I'm committed to making this work." Charles studied her face, noting the determination that had impressed the palace advisors. "You don't have to be perfect immediately. Even I'm still learning, and I've been preparing for this role my entire life." These moments of genuine connection gave Catherine hope that their marriage might become something more than a mere arrangement. She began to see glimpses of the man behind the royal facade, someone who struggled with the same pressures she was now experiencing. The wedding planning proceeded with military precision. Every detail was scrutinized for its potential impact on public opinion. Catherine's dress was designed to honor tradition while suggesting a modern sensibility. The guest list balanced diplomatic necessity with personal preference. Through it all, Camilla maintained her dignity in public while grieving privately for the life she had lost. Friends rallied around her, but nothing could ease the pain of watching the man she loved marry someone else for reasons of state. As the wedding date approached, Catherine found herself changing in ways she hadn't expected. The shy young woman who had once hidden from attention was learning to command a room. Her voice grew stronger during public speaking lessons. Her posture became more regal during formal events. "You're becoming quite formidable," Charles observed after watching her handle a particularly challenging interview with BBC reporters. "Is that good or bad?" Catherine asked. "For a future queen?" "Essential," Charles replied, and for the first time, she heard genuine warmth in his voice. The night before their wedding, Catherine stood in her room at Buckingham Palace looking out over the London skyline. Tomorrow she would walk down the aisle of Westminster Abbey and become part of an institution that had endured for over 1,000 years. She thought about the little girl she had been, dreaming ordinary dreams in her Berkshire bedroom. That girl could never have imagined this moment. Yet here she stood, ready to take on a role that would define the rest of her life. In another part of the city, Charles was having his own moment of reflection. Tomorrow he would marry a woman he respected but didn't yet love, ending forever his chance of happiness with Camilla. It was the price of being born to serve, and he accepted it with the same resignation that had shaped his entire life. Westminster Abbey had witnessed royal weddings for centuries, but none quite like this one. As dawn broke over London on the wedding day, thousands of well-wishers were already lining the streets, hoping to catch a glimpse of their future queen. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation and celebration. Catherine woke in her suite at Buckingham Palace to the sound of church bells echoing across the city. Today she would cease to be Catherine Middleton and become the Princess of Wales. The enormity of the transformation still took her breath away. Her wedding dress hung nearby, a masterpiece of ivory silk and delicate lace that honored both tradition and her personal style. As her dresser helped her into the gown, Catherine felt herself stepping into history. Every royal bride before her had experienced this same mixture of excitement and terror. "You look absolutely radiant." "Your Royal Highness," said her lady-in-waiting, using the title Catherine was still learning to accept. The carriage ride to Westminster Abbey passed in a blur of waving crowds and flashing cameras. Catherine had practiced this journey multiple times, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of seeing hundreds of thousands of people lining the streets, all there to witness her transformation. Inside the Abbey, Charles waited at the altar in his military dress uniform, looking every inch the future king. As Catherine began her walk down the aisle, their eyes met, and she saw something unexpected in his gaze, genuine pride, and perhaps the beginning of affection. The Archbishop of Canterbury's voice filled the ancient cathedral as he spoke the words that would bind them together, not just as husband and wife, but as servants to the crown and the British people. "Do you, Charles Philip Arthur George, take Catherine Elizabeth to be your wedded wife?" "I do," Charles replied, his voice carrying clearly through the Abbey. When it came time for Catherine's vows, her voice was steady and clear. "I do," she said, and with those two words she became part of the royal family forever. The moment Charles placed the ring on her finger, Catherine felt a shift inside herself. The nervous young woman who had entered the Abbey was gone, replaced by someone ready to embrace her destiny as a future queen. Outside, the crowds erupted in celebration as the newly married couple appeared on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Their brief kiss was witnessed by millions around the world, a symbol of hope for the monarchy's future. But away from the public celebrations, the wedding's impact was being felt in more private ways. Camilla Parker Bowles watched the ceremony on television from her country home, her heart breaking with each traditional vow. The man she loved was now married to another woman, bound by sacred promises she could never compete with. In the weeks following the wedding, Catherine threw herself into her new role with characteristic determination. She studied the constitutional monarchy's workings, learned about the Commonwealth nations, and began taking on official engagements alongside Charles. Their first joint appearance was at a children's hospital in Manchester. Catherine's natural warmth with the young patients impressed both the medical staff and the accompanying press corps. She knelt beside hospital beds, listening intently to children's stories and bringing genuine smiles to worried faces. "She's a natural," Charles murmured to his aide as he watched Catherine comfort a frightened little girl. As the months passed, their professional partnership began to evolve into something deeper. Catherine's intelligence and compassion earned Charles's growing respect, while his guidance helped her navigate the complex world of royal protocol and political sensitivity. They discovered shared interests in environmental conservation and supporting disadvantaged youth. Their conversations, once stilted and formal, became more natural and engaged. Catherine found herself looking forward to their evening briefings, when they would discuss the day's events and plan future engagements. "You're changing," Charles observed one evening as they reviewed correspondence in his study. "How so?" Catherine asked, looking up from a letter about a new literacy program. "You're becoming more confident, more certain of your place in all this. It suits you." Catherine considered his words. "I suppose I'm finally understanding what it means to serve something larger than myself." The public was taking notice of her transformation as well. Newspaper headlines praised her growing confidence and her obvious dedication to her royal duties. Fashion magazines analyzed her elegant but accessible style. Most importantly, opinion polls showed rising approval ratings for the monarchy itself. Yet beneath the public success, both Charles and Catherine were grappling with private emotions. Charles found himself genuinely enjoying Catherine's company and respecting her quick intelligence. The arrangement he had entered into for duty's sake was becoming something he hadn't expected, a real partnership. Catherine, meanwhile, was discovering that her feelings for Charles were evolving beyond mere respect. His dedication to his responsibilities, his kindness to their staff, and his genuine concern for the British people were qualities that drew her to him in ways she hadn't anticipated. One evening, after a particularly successful engagement at a veterans' hospital, they sat together in comfortable silence as their car returned to London. "Charles," Catherine said quietly, "I want you to know that I don't regret my decision. This life, this partnership, it's becoming more meaningful than I ever imagined." Charles turned to look at her, noting how the evening light highlighted her serene expression. "I'm grateful you chose to join me in this, Catherine. You've brought something to the role that I never could have provided alone." Neither spoke of love yet, but something was shifting between them. The marriage that had begun as a matter of duty was slowly becoming something neither had dared hope for. A genuine emotional connection built on shared purpose and growing affection. As their first year of marriage drew to a close, both Charles and Catherine were becoming the royal couple Britain needed. Stable, devoted to service, and increasingly devoted to each other. The second year of Charles and Catherine's marriage brought unexpected challenges that would test their growing bond. A devastating flood in northern England required immediate royal attention, and the couple found themselves working side by side in emergency shelters, comforting families who had lost everything. Catherine rolled up her sleeves without hesitation, helping serve meals to evacuees and organizing clothing donations. Her genuine compassion touched everyone she met, while Charles coordinated with government officials to ensure adequate relief efforts. "Your Royal Highness," an elderly man said to Catherine as she helped him fill out insurance forms, "you're not what I expected from royalty. You really care about us ordinary folk." These words stayed with Catherine long after they returned to London. She was beginning to understand that her role wasn't just ceremonial. She could make a real difference in people's lives. Late one evening, as they reviewed the day's relief efforts in Charles's study, something shifted between them. They had been working together for 18 hours straight, and exhaustion had stripped away their usual formal barriers. "You were remarkable today," Charles said, looking at Catherine with undisguised admiration. "The way you connected with those families. It reminded me why this work matters." Catherine felt her heart skip slightly at the warmth in his voice. "We make a good team, don't we?" "We do," Charles agreed, and for a moment they simply looked at each other, both aware that their relationship was evolving beyond professional partnership. The growing connection between them didn't go unnoticed by the press or the public. Photographs from the flood relief efforts showed them working seamlessly together, Charles's protective presence beside Catherine's compassionate outreach, creating a powerful image of modern royalty. However, not everyone was pleased with these developments. Camilla Parker Bowles had maintained her dignity throughout the past 2 years, but watching Charles and Catherine's obvious partnership flourish was increasingly painful. At a charity function where all three were present, the tension was palpable. Camilla greeted the royal couple with perfect courtesy, but observant guests noticed the sadness in her eyes when she looked at Charles. "How are you managing?" Charles asked Camilla quietly during a brief private moment. "I'm surviving," she replied with characteristic honesty, "though I admit watching you two together is more difficult than I anticipated." Charles felt a stab of guilt, but also clarity. "Camilla, I need you to know that I've found something I didn't expect in this marriage. Catherine and we're becoming real partners." Camilla studied his face and saw the truth there. "I can see that. She's good for you, Charles. And more importantly, she's good for the monarchy." It was perhaps the most generous thing she could have said, and both of them knew it marked the end of whatever might have been between them. Meanwhile, Catherine was experiencing her own revelation about her feelings for Charles. What had begun as respect and partnership was blossoming into something deeper. She found herself looking forward to their private conversations, treasuring moments when his guard dropped and she glimpsed the man behind the royal facade. The turning point came during a state visit to Canada. Away from the pressures of London, they relaxed into each other's company in ways they hadn't before. During a quiet evening in Ottawa, they walked together through the grounds of the Governor-General's residence. "Do you ever wonder what our lives would have been like if we had met under different circumstances?" Catherine asked. Charles considered the question carefully. "I used to think our arrangement was a sacrifice I was making for duty, but now I realize it might have been the best decision I ever made." Catherine stopped walking and turned to face him. "Charles, I need to tell you something. What I'm feeling for you now, it's not just partnership or respect anymore." The admission hung between them in the cool Canadian air. Charles reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers in a gesture that felt both natural and momentous. "I was hoping you might say that," he said softly, "because I've been falling in love with my own wife, and I wasn't sure how to tell her." Their first real kiss happened under the stars in a foreign country. Two people who had married for duty, finally discovering they had found love as well. The transformation in their relationship was subtle, but noticeable to those who knew them well. Their public appearances took on a new warmth. Their private moments became precious to both of them, and their shared commitment to royal service deepened into something beautiful. Catherine's confidence soared with the security of knowing she was truly wanted, not just needed. Her public speaking improved dramatically, her fashion choices became more sophisticated, and her natural charisma began to shine through in ways that captivated the British public. Charles, meanwhile, seemed to shed years of tension and uncertainty, having a true partner who shared his values and supported his vision, for the monarchy allowed him to embrace his future role with renewed enthusiasm. "You've changed him," the Queen observed to Catherine during a private tea. "He's happier than I've seen him in years." "He's changed me too, Your Majesty," Catherine replied. "I never expected to find love in this arrangement, but I have." The Queen smiled knowingly. "The best royal marriages are built on shared duty that grows into genuine affection. You and Charles are proving that tradition still works." As their second anniversary approached, Charles and Catherine had achieved something remarkable. They had transformed a marriage of convenience into a love story that would inspire their future subjects and strengthen the monarchy for generations to come. 5 years after their wedding, Charles and Catherine stood together on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, watching the crowd gathered below for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. The woman beside Charles bore little resemblance to the uncertain young woman who had accepted his proposal years earlier. Catherine had grown into her role as Princess of Wales with remarkable grace. Her confidence was evident in every gesture, her commitment to service clear in every speech. The British people had embraced her completely, seeing in her the perfect bridge between tradition and modernity. "Look at them," Catherine said, gesturing to the cheering crowd. "They're not just celebrating the Queen's reign, they're celebrating hope for the future." Charles squeezed her hand gently. "A future will be leading together soon enough." The prospect of becoming king and queen no longer seemed daunting to either of them. Their partnership had evolved into something powerful and purposeful, built on genuine love and shared dedication to serving their country. Their marriage had produced 2 children, Prince William, now 3 years old, and Princess Charlotte, 18 months. The sight of the young family together never failed to delight the public and the press alike. Catherine had proven to be a devoted mother who balanced royal duties with hands-on parenting. "Papa, look," little William called from where he was playing with his toy soldiers on the carpet of Charles's study. The prince had inherited his father's serious nature but his mother's warmth. Charles knelt beside his son, admiring the elaborate battle scene the boy had created. "Tell me about your strategy, General William." Watching them together, Catherine felt a deep satisfaction. Charles was the father she had hoped he would be, patient, involved, and determined to give their children the normal childhood he had never experienced. The success of their marriage had not gone unnoticed by constitutional experts and royal historians. Articles were written about the Catherine effect on the monarchy's popularity. Opinion polls showed unprecedented approval ratings. "For the royal family, you've given the crown something it hasn't had in generations," the Queen told Catherine during one of their regular private meetings. "Authenticity combined with dignity. The people trust you because they believe you understand them." Catherine had indeed maintained her connection to ordinary British life, even as she embraced her royal role. She insisted on doing her own shopping occasionally, always remembering the names of staff members, and speaking naturally rather than in the stilted royal manner of previous generations. Her charitable work had expanded to include mental health awareness, early childhood development, and support for military families. Each cause was chosen carefully and pursued with genuine passion rather than mere obligation. Charles had found in Catherine not just a wife, but a true co-ruler. Her insights into public opinion helped him shape his own approach to his future kingship. Together, they represented a monarchy that could evolve with the times while maintaining its essential dignity and purpose. One evening, as they prepared for bed in their private apartments, Charles reflected on the unexpected journey their marriage had taken. "Do you remember our first conversation?" he asked Catherine as she brushed her hair at her dressing table. "How could I forget?" "I was terrified," Catherine laughed. "You were asking me to give up everything I knew for a life I couldn't imagine. And yet you said yes." "And yet I said yes," she agreed, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "Best decision I ever made." Charles moved behind her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. "I used to think love was a luxury royalty couldn't afford. You taught me it's actually essential for the job." Their reflection in the mirror showed a couple who had grown into their roles and into each other. The arranged marriage had become a love story. The duty-bound partnership had evolved into genuine devotion. As news of the Queen's gradual preparation for abdication began to circulate privately within royal circles, Charles and Catherine knew their time as heir and consort was drawing to a close. Soon they would face the ultimate test of their partnership, ruling together as king and queen. The prospect excited rather than frightened them. They had proven they could weather challenges together, support each other through difficulties, and present a united front to the world. Their love had been forged in the crucible of public service and had emerged stronger for it. Standing at their bedroom window, looking out over the London they would soon rule, Catherine placed her hand over her heart, where a new life was just beginning to grow. Their third child would be born into a family that had found love within duty, happiness within service. Charles noticed her gesture and understood immediately. "Really?" he asked softly. Catherine nodded, tears of joy in her eyes. "Really?" As they held each other in the quiet of their private sanctuary, both knew that their story was far from over. They had taken the Crown's demands for a suitable marriage and transformed it into something beautiful and enduring. The future stretched before them, full of challenges and responsibilities, but they would face it together. The arrangement that had begun with Charles, rejecting Camilla's heart for Catherine's hand, had become the foundation for a partnership that would guide Britain into a new era. Love had conquered duty not by defeating it, but by embracing it completely.